Within this video, we'll really pick apart problem-solving therapy and help you understand the 5 steps that are involved in this therapy. As you'll see from our overview of this therapy and how to conduct it, this is really a systematic way of working with individuals so that they can become more robust problem solvers. So the first step in problem-solving therapy is helping your client to identify and describe the problem. In this step, you'll have a conversation with your client to really try to understand their thoughts and feelings about a problem and their ability to solve it. As you have this conversation, you'll probably see that your client will either want to face the problem and solve it, or they might be more likely to avoid it, and this may have been perpetuating the problem over time. At the end of this conversation, you want to have a sense of your client's problem-solving orientation. Some individuals that you work with may have a more positive problem-solving orientation, meaning that they're more rational and effective in problem solving, and they just need a little help to apply it within certain situations. Other individuals may be more negative in their problem-solving orientation, meaning that they are more impulsive or avoidant when it comes to trying to solve problems. These individuals may need more time and support to develop problem-solving skills because the skills that they currently have to cope with their problems are not as effective as they could be. So either type of individual can develop problem-solving skills. Really, this positive versus negative orientation is just additional information that you can have in hand that may shape how you work with these individuals. So for step 1, you will have a conversation with your client that will be guided by these open-ended questions. The purpose of this conversation is to help both you and your client identify and describe the problem at hand. Your client might have certain things in mind as the source of the problem, but once you go through these questions, it might really illuminate other things that are the true source of the problem and a good target for problem-solving steps. So you want to ask your client, what is the situation? What would you like the situation to be? What cues or behaviors are leading you to this situation? And what are the obstacles that are keeping you from your desired situation? When you practice this within your activity, you'll have a worksheet that you'll work through. As you can see on this worksheet, the first step is describe your problem in detail. What led up to the problem? What are the cues, people, thoughts, and feelings that were involved in the problem? And ultimately, what is the chain of events that led to the problem? So you will have your client first answer these open-ended questions and provide a narrative description of the problem. And then you will work with them to develop a chain of events that accurately reflects what's going on in their situation. For example, let's say we're working with a client who wants to change their coffee drinking habits. They know that they are addicted to Starbucks coffee, and they know that drinking all these sugary, high-calorie drinks are not helping with their weight loss efforts. They feel that every time they pass a Starbucks truck or store, they have to go in and get a coffee because they crave it so strongly. For this client, the conversation that centered around the open-ended questions led to the narrative provided here, but also led the client and the clinician to develop this chain of events that the client felt accurately described this habit that had been created around Starbucks. The client walks by a Starbucks store, feels an intense coffee craving that's triggered by walking by the store, and that craving then triggers the cognition that that individual is feeling tired and could really use a pick-me-up. That then leads the individual to walk into the store and buy a large coffee drink that's high in calories and sugar, and that makes the individual feel better in the moment because it both relieves the craving as well as the tiredness they're feeling. But after they finish the drink and think more logically about the decision they made, they feel bad both in the sense that they didn't meet their goals for not drinking as much coffee, but also might make them feel bad physically. Those bad feelings then lead to more cravings for coffee and sugar to help them feel better, but also in the long term contribute to them not meeting their weight loss goals because of the extra calories that are consumed from these coffee drinks. So the next step in problem-solving therapy is to brainstorm possible solutions. Once we've really honed in on what the problem is and the chain of events that are leading to that problem, we can then think about intervention points within that chain where we can hopefully change the direction of events so that they lead to more desirable outcomes. Now, within this process, we really don't want to be just giving solutions to our clients, suggesting that they do A, B, or C. We want to be eliciting solutions from them. We want to prompt them to do the hard work to think through what are different things that they could do along this chain of events that would hopefully lead to a different outcome. They can think about things that they've tried in the past that they might want to try again, or they can think about brand new things that they've never tried before and are willing to give a chance. And again, this is a collaborative conversation. We really want to encourage our clients to be open to a variety of solutions and to think hard about potential solutions that will work within their lives. If they get really stuck and ask for help, then we can offer up different ideas and vet whether or not they think that those would be a good strategy to try. We'll then ask them to write down these solutions and brainstorm how they might work to fix the problem. We want these solutions to be realistic, but to cover a wide range of strategies. You can also have your client elicit help from those close to them, friends, families, coworkers, if needed, because those outside perspectives might be very valuable in helping them to see ways that they can solve their problem that they maybe hadn't thought of before. So going back to our example of our client who's trying to kick their Starbucks habit, we have the second page of our worksheet here. And you can see within this page, we have 10 slots where we can brainstorm different options, different solutions. And again, note that these are really ways that we can try to break those links that led to the problem and create a new chain that leads to a more desirable outcome. So some of the different options that were brainstormed by the client and clinician within this example is that client could change their walking route so that they're not passing by Starbucks. They could leave their money at home so that they have no way of buying a coffee when they're out and about. They could have some sort of thought-stopping mechanism where they write "no Starbucks" on their hand, and that would remind them that they have this goal of not drinking coffee. They can make different choices when they go into the store, that they could buy a black coffee instead of a sugary, calorically dense drink. Or they could work to just get a smaller size, so still get the drink they love, but try to get the smallest version of it. They could designate a special day of the week that's their Starbucks day so that they restrict all week long, but know that there's an end in sight on that Saturday Starbucks day. They could also just cut it off completely and just try to ignore those stores whenever they walk by there. They could put something in the coffee that would eventually develop an aversion to it, like Tabasco sauce. They could get more sleep so that they don't have that thought of "I'm so tired." Or they could go in and switch to tea. So after all of these different solutions have been brainstormed and your client feels comfortable that they have a good list of things that they would be willing to try, the third step in problem-solving therapy is to pick one solution to try. And you want to not just pick one out of the blue, but rather really weigh the pros and cons of the different options. So you're really having your client take the time to really reflect on which solution would work best in their current situation. One of the things you also want to think about when you're picking a solution to try is that solutions that will attack links in the chain as early as possible have a higher likelihood of overall success. And the main thinking here is that the earlier you can try to nip the problem in the bud, the less likely you are to get derailed in your efforts later on down the line. So acknowledge that these cues will come up, and we can't always just avoid the cues, but we can hopefully early on in this behavior change try to get that chain to go in a different direction. We also want to be thinking about which options will be the most realistic and achievable in that client's current situation. We want to remind the client that perfection is not the goal here. There will be no perfect solution, and the appropriate solution might change over time as well. But really, we want the client to target the best solution that they think has the highest likelihood of success at this time. So going back to our example, within step 3 here, you have the prompt to pick one option to try. You're weighing the pros and cons of each option, aiming to change links as early in the chain as you can, and choosing options that are likely to work for you and that you feel you can accomplish. So as you can see within the table, the first option that the client brainstormed was to change their route. A pro of this is that it would lead to more walking, which would have physical benefits of more exercise. But a potential con of this is that it might not work well because there are Starbucks everywhere, and it can be difficult to find a route where you would be able to avoid a Starbucks store or truck. And so ultimately the client decided that the cons outweighed the pros here and that they would toss this situation for now. The second option, leaving money at home, would have the pro that overall that individuals spend less money, but they also wouldn't have money if they needed it for other things. And so ultimately the client decided not to try this one at this time. Writing on their hand would be an easy solution, but it also might be silly and embarrassing, so not a viable option at this time. The option of buying black coffee could work because the pro is that the individual likes black coffee and would enjoy that just as much, even though it's maybe not as satisfying as their sugary frappuccino. But they selected this as a viable option to try. The option of weaning down to a smaller size had the pro of still giving that sweet satisfaction, but might not be as helpful for weight loss, but it could be a viable option as well. And so you can see, you would go through the whole list of the 10 options that were brainstormed and do this pro and con exercise for each one, and then select the ones that are the best options to start with.